In this video, we will show how to disassemble, clean, inspect, and reassemble a constant velocity joint, or what is more commonly known as a CV joint. Our instructions could be used for replacing parts or simply cleaning, inspecting, and reassembling. In the off-road industry, many CV joints are warranted, and you may need to disassemble the joint and install new parts. In fact, that's the reason we're servicing this joint today. The splines on the inner race are bad. Our CV Off-Road Performance Products has warranted it, and we will be replacing at least the inner race. Tools required for this job are a bench vise, a small standard screwdriver, two relatively soft punches, one small and one large, a soft hammer, an aerosol can of degreaser, a pan, and some cleaning cloths. Begin by clamping the shaft section of the CV assembly in the vise in a non-critical area. Avoid the splines and the seal surface. Place the handle of the hammer in the race and rotate it to one side. Further rotate the cage, balls, and race by tapping on the cage in an area that aligns with one of the housing grooves. Avoid damaging the housing grooves with the punch. Once the first ball becomes free, pry it out using a small screwdriver. Once the first ball has been removed, rotate the cage, balls, and race in the opposite direction. Then tap on the cage until the second ball becomes free. Once free, remove it with the screwdriver as well. Continue this process until all the balls are removed. There may be times when the cage becomes jammed. If this happens, simply tap on the cage with a hammer in a non-critical area. Once all the balls are removed, rotate the cage and the race vertically. Align the cage openings with the notches in the housing and lift the cage and race assembly out of the housing. Then remove the race from the cage by rotating the race, aligning one of the squares of the race with one of the holes in the cage and removing the race. Using degreaser and a cloth, clean the housing, the cage, the race, and the balls. Now that all the parts are clean, inspect each part for cracks, excessive wear, and scoring. Notice the wear on these internal splines of the race. This race is what we will be replacing. All the rest of the parts look reusable. Now that the cage, balls, and housing have been cleaned and inspected, and we have a new race, we are ready for reassembly. Secure the housing back in the bench vise. Install the race back inside the cage. Install the race cage assembly back inside the housing. Make sure that the cone part of the cage is oriented upward, and the non-splined section of the race is oriented upward as well. Rotate the race and the cage such that the grooves in the race and the holes in the cage align with the grooves in the housing. Once all the parts are properly aligned, install the first ball. Tap the ball into place with a hammer. Push the ball into the groove as far as you can by hand. Then tap the ball farther into the groove using the hammer and punch. Be aware that these balls are tough. It's best to drive the balls into place by hitting the balls whenever possible. However, it's okay to tap on the cage if needed. Continue driving the cage downward until the opposite ball can be installed. Install the second ball and drive it down into the groove using the punch and hammer. Be sure the race is properly positioned as the ball is being driven in. Once the second ball is in place and driven in, place the hammer handle in the race and rotate the race and cage so that the third ball can be installed. Install the third ball and drive it down in the groove. Rotate the cage and race, exposing the location of the fourth ball. Install the fourth ball and drive it into place. Rotate the cage and race, exposing the location of the fifth ball. Install the fifth ball and drive it into place. And then finally, rotate the cage and race, exposing the location of the sixth ball, and install it in the same way. That concludes today's presentation. We remind you that all the parts and supplies required for this job can be purchased through our website at www.lowrangeoffroad.com or by calling 801-805-6644.